I'm Shai Judia. I'm happy to have you with me for another lesson in our English fluency journey. So let's begin today's lesson. Why do I hesitate while speaking English? Have you ever wanted to say something in English but stopped yourself? You knew what you wanted to say, you knew even the words, but just before you open your mouth, your mind said, "What if I make a mistake?" So you waited. Someone else started speaking. The conversation moved on. And a few seconds later, you thought, "Oh my God, I should have said it." Have you ever experienced that? Maybe it happened in a meeting or in an interview or while speaking to a stranger or perhaps even with someone you know. You had something to say, but you chose silence. Today, I want to talk about that hesitation. Because sometimes the biggest thing stopping you from speaking English isn't a lack of English, it's the fear of using the English that you already have. Let me tell you about Anjali. Anjali was a well-qualified professional. She understood English very well. She could read emails. She could understand meetings. She could watch English videos. She knew plenty of vocabulary. But whenever she had to speak, she became very careful. Before saying a sentence, she would check it in her head. Is this the correct tense? Then, is this the right preposition? Then, should I say have or has? What if my pronunciation is wrong? By the time she had checked everything, the conversation had already moved forward. She knew English, but she wasn't using it freely. Anjali did not have an English problem. She had a monitoring problem. She was trying to control everything while speaking. Grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, sentence structure, accent, everything at the same time. Imagine trying to ride a bicycle while constantly looking at your feet. You might know how to ride, but if you keep checking every moment, you won't ride naturally. Speaking works in a similar way. While you monitor every single sentence, your speech becomes slow. And the slower you become, the more nervous you feel. Then the nervousness creates more hesitation. It's a cycle. Let's be honest, most learners don't fear English itself. They fear other people's reactions. They think, what will they think if I make a mistake? What if they laugh? What if my pronunciation is wrong? What if I use the wrong tense? What if they realize my English isn't good? But let me ask you something. Have you ever heard a fluent English speaker make a grammar mistakes? Of course, even native speakers make mistakes. They correct themselves. They change sentences halfway through. They forget words. They repeat themselves. They say, sorry, what I mean is, and then they continue. They don't stop the entire conversation because of one mistake. So why should you? Imagine you are learning to drive. During your first few lessons, you make mistakes. Perhaps you change gears too early. Perhaps you brake too suddenly. Perhaps you take a wrong turn. Would your driving instructor say you have made a mistake, so stop driving forever? Of course not. The mistake is part of the learning. English is the same. A speaking mistake isn't proof that you cannot speak English. It's information. It tells you this is something I need to improve. That's all. One of the biggest problems I see among educated English learners is perfectionism. They don't want to speak until they can speak perfectly. But there is a problem. You can't become confident at something that you are afraid to practice. Think about a child learning to walk. A child doesn't stand up and say, let me make sure that my balance is perfect before I take my first step. The child stands, falls, gets up, tries again, falls again, and eventually he walks. Nobody expects the child to walk perfectly on the first day. So why do we expect ourselves to speak perfect English from the beginning? Here is something very important. Many people think once I become confident, I'll start speaking. But often the opposite is true. You start speaking, then you make progress. Then you realize you can handle conversations and slowly your confidence grows. Confidence is often the result of action, not the starting point. You don't wait for confidence. You build confidence by doing the thing that you are afraid to do. So what you can actually do, here is a simple technique. I call it a 3-second rule. When someone asks you a question in English, don't spend 20 seconds preparing the perfect answer. Take a breath and start speaking within 3 seconds. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be complicated. Start with something simple, like, I think, in my opinion, from my experience, what I would say, these small openings give your brain time to organize the rest of your thought. The important thing is start. Once you start, your brain often finds the next words. And here is another thing that you can practice. Stop trying to make every sentence complicated. Many learners think fluent English means using difficult vocabulary. It doesn't. Simple English spoken clearly is much more powerful than complicated English spoken with fear. Instead of saying, I would like to elaborate upon the various difficulties that I encountered, you can simply say, I had several problems. Clear, natural, easy to understand. Your goal isn't to impress people with English. Your goal is to communicate your ideas. So, today's action plan. Okay, let's make today's lesson practical. For the next 7 days, I want you to do one small thing. Every day, choose one person. It could be a friend, a colleague, a family member, or even someone you are comfortable speaking with online. Start one short conversation in English. Don't prepare the entire conversation. Don't write your sentences first. Don't check every grammar rule. Just start. Even if the conversation lasts only 2 minutes, that's fine. Your goal is not to have perfect conversation. Your goal is to reduce the hesitation before you speak. And here is the important part. After the conversation, don't ask yourself, how many mistakes did I make? Instead ask, did I speak when I wanted to speak? That's the progress we are looking for. So let me leave you with this. Every time you remain silent because you are afraid of making mistakes, your fear becomes a little stronger. But every time you speak despite that fear, your confidence becomes a little stronger. So the next time you feel that hesitation, don't wait for it to disappear. Speak anyway. Your voice doesn't need to be perfect. Your grammar doesn't need to be perfect. Your pronunciation doesn't need to be perfect. But your willingness to communicate needs to be stronger than your fear of making mistakes. Because one day, you'll find yourself in a conversation and you'll notice something different. You won't be thinking, is my English correct? You'll simply thinking about, what do I want to say? And that's a beautiful stage in your English journey, because that's when English starts becoming not something that you are constantly thinking about, but something that you are simply using. So don't wait until you are confident. Speak until you become confident. Don't wait until your English is perfect. Use your English until it becomes better. And don't be afraid of making mistakes. Let your mistakes become part of your progress. Thank you for listening to the Oxygen English audio series. Keep learning, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep speaking. And I'll meet you in the next audio lesson.